So good evening and welcome. My name is Sarah Vantoff. I am one of the counselors here at Central High. Those of you who are joining us from Eastern or Northern, we welcome you to our space. Logistics between the 3 high school auditoriums and the Fine Arts Center can be a little challenging sometimes, so this was the date that happened to work for everybody, and we're so glad that you can join us. I want to start with the caveat that our graduates from Forest Hills are doing wonderful things, not just college. We know that that will be one of the emphasis tonight. We support and celebrate whatever endeavors your student and all of our students are considering pursuing. And with that, we will have tonight some conversation with one of our career readiness consultants from the ISD to talk big picture about careers and to talk big picture about how college and career is shifting in terms of the script of where are you going to college, but instead, what career are you consider pursuing? And Eric will unpack that a little bit for us. I'm joined tonight by Mitch Blank, who is a counselor at Eastern High School, Kyle Perkins, who is a counselor at Northern High School, and Eric Kelleher from the Kent Intermediate School District. Thank you for joining us.
Well, good evening, and thanks for letting me come out to chat with you for a little bit. My name is Eric Kelleher. As was mentioned, I am with the ISD. I'm going to set a timer because I have a tendency to talk a lot, so this keeps me on task. So, part of the reason I've been doing this, for several years now, they keep, Forest Hills is so gracious in asking me to come out and share from our side what we can do to help support, and for you as parents, what you can do. And I'm right there with you. I have my first senior finishing up school this year, so I'm in the same boat as many of you are right now tonight. But I want to just talk really quickly a little bit about what Kent ISD does from a career readiness standpoint and how we can support. So we are a service organization that does support all 20 local districts and over 100,000 students in the county. We obviously, many of you may have heard of Kent Career Tech Center or KCTC. We do obviously send many students, even from Forest Hills and from all of our locals to KCTC, but our team supports in other ways too, working with the locals to do career development planning, to talk about how we can support students, getting students out on field trips or industry tours, bringing guest speakers in and things like that. Really keeping it simple, our mission is, and it's a little bit off here, but we'll just say that last line is working to ensure every student, instead of saying leaves their K-12 experience with a plan, and says knowing how to navigate the career readiness process. That's really what is most important, is learning how to navigate the process. Kids may walk away from high school not knowing exactly what they want to do. I certainly didn't, and maybe many of you in the audience could say the same. You walked away, I'm like, I remember being in college when people were saying, where are you going to go to college and what are you going to study? Well, we have several students who say, I don't want to go to college. And once upon a time, that was looked down upon, and to be honest, still is sometimes today. I just went to several businesses yesterday. One of them was Beist Electric. A lot of their people are making $100,000 to $200,000. Better insurance that we have in education, there's a lot of opportunities to get in the trades. And so we want to just make sure that we're letting students know of all the opportunities. And then even if they are going to college, to say, well, what are you going to study? Well, it took me 6 years to figure out what I wanted to do. And not because I was a bad student, it's because I kept changing my mind. So how can we help students when it comes to thinking like that? So a couple of statistics I wanted to share with you. Number one, 66% of teens fear after-school decisions when they graduate high school. What am I going to do? What's next? They are thinking about this. They're worried about it. It can keep some kids up late at night. 41% of the high school graduates felt unprepared to make career choices or declare a college major upon graduation. And 37% of high school graduates who were surveyed in one particular survey, regardless of their current education or career, are still not sure what they want to be when they're graduating high school. Say, I still don't know. Even though I've done all this prep work, I'm still not sure. That's very normal. So first of all, let's normalize that and just call it what it is. But how do we help kids get to a place so that when they do graduate high school, they feel like they have a better idea of what they want to do? So one of the first things we talk about is, how did you approach these life choices? Because what you see a lot of people, it didn't do that very well. What you see a lot of people is they say, I decide where I want to go to college first. For me, I wanted to go to U of M. Do you know why I wanted to go to U of M? Because I love the Wolverines. That's why I wanted to go to that school. And I had a mentor who said, you really need to go there. It's a great school. And of course, I wanted to go for that reason. I didn't get in, but that was where I wanted to go, right? A lot of students pick their college major first, or pick their college first, and then they decide on a major, and then eventually they say, well, what do I want to do for a living? And that is the backwards way to do it. We need to be thinking, what is it that you want to do for a living? What major would support that, and what school offers that? We've heard many times stories of kids going to a school only to find out what they want to do is not supported by the programs that they offer at that school. Help kids try to answer the question, what problems do you want to solve? That's the right question to ask. What is it that you'd like to do? How would you like to help somebody or serve somebody? What is it that would make you excited to be going to work every day? Ask those questions and answer those questions, and then you can work backwards from there to figure out what major and then what school to go to. Just a few more statistics. About 80% of college-going students change their major at least once. On average, they change it at least 3 times, and I think I probably took that average up even higher, right? And how many people here who did go to college, whether they declared it or not, changed their mind at least 3 times? All right, so several people in this room. Only 60% of first-time, full-time undergraduate students who begin seeking a bachelor's degree at a 4-year institution graduate within 6 years. So it makes me feel a little bit better that I got in under the skin of my teeth, but that's a pretty low percentage, especially with the cost of college being 2.5 plus times what it was when I went to school. And third, only 27% of college grads have a job related to their majors as reported by the Washington Post. Now the plus side is this: it's okay to help our students say, you don't have to have it all figured out. You're not the only one. So that's good to know. But the flip side of that is, okay, what can we do now to start thinking about that to give you a better idea or help you feel more confident about that? And worst case scenario is if you decide you're halfway through and you're like, this isn't for me, then what can we do to change gears, and what kind of supports can we put in place that would help you feel like you know what to do next to kind of restart that process? I have a quick little video to show that I think will be really funny, but this really does kind of sum it up. So I wanted to show this real quick to you.
Hey, bud. Remember, if you need anything, we're just a phone call away.
Don't forget to register for classes just as soon as they open, okay?
Okay, Mom, Dad, relax. I'm gonna make the most of these 4 years in school. I have a plan. Freshman year, I'm only gonna take intro courses or easier classes. Just kind of like whatever I feel like. Definitely nothing with a writing assignment, though.
But I thought you were majoring in English.
No, that's just gonna be my first major. Sophomore year, I plan on changing it like at least 3 more times. And eventually, I'm just gonna choose the one that I have the most number of credits in and has the least number of classes before noon. Which actually won't even make much of a difference anyway, because I won't be going all that much.
You won't be going to classes?
Academics aren't necessarily gonna be my focus, if you know what I mean. Oh, yeah.
Your mother and I think that you should have a more well-rounded experience than just partying.
No, of course, Dad. I'm on top of it. Junior year, I'm gonna study abroad in a foreign country that is rich with culture. But I'm only gonna hang out with other Americans. Mom, come on. Senior year, I'm gonna turn it all around. I'm gonna take a summer course, I'll change my major 1 more time, and then maybe I'll have enough credits to almost graduate on time. Almost.
Well, as long as you graduate with a plan, that's all that matters.
Well, after graduation, I'm gonna realize that the real world and trying to find a job where I can pay off tens of thousands of dollars in student debt is just way too scary. So I'm gonna go into grad school, I'm gonna hide out there for a couple of years, and that's where I'm really gonna rack up the debt. Like, rack it up. You guys, I am so excited for my future.
That is both funny and a little scary and too close to true, even if it's a little bit of hyperbole, right? I mean, there is some truth to some of the things that were being said, even if, again, a little bit scary with where they're at. So I want to make sure I get to the right slide here. Okay, from right there. So there is like I said, a little bit of truth to that. And how do we help kids avoid the traps that come with going away to a school? And if you notice, the parents are like, well, as long as you have a plan. Well, you can have a plan and have a bad plan, and that's kind of what was looking like here. So I just wanted to let you know a couple of things. Number one, only 4 in 10 college students feel well prepared for their careers. That's a study that was done. 4 in 10 college graduates, all right, or college students. So I did want to just mention, and I'm not here to tell you that college is not good. By all means, like, I have a master's degree in education and curriculum development. I'm all about education, but I think what we need to be doing with our students is helping them to figure out what is it that they want to do, and then you can get them on the path. For example, I know that there are some families who poo-poo going to like KCTC. Well, that's for kids who don't want to go to college. We have actually a lot of programs at KCTC where kids can be pre-college and be getting a little bit of exposure. I'm working on with students at Davenport right now who are doing medical assistance programs through KCTC to try to see if they want to work in the healthcare. There are a lot of great careers, however, that don't require a 4-year degree. Some of them will require some form of training, and I can see that this is a little bit kind of off, but you can see several different jobs here that pay very well and that do not require a 4-year degree. Some of them require a 2-year, some are just trade-based, but there are plenty of options. So make sure you don't limit those and allow your students to try to figure out what is a good fit for them before we go ahead and make decisions. So this is another really important thing. What do employers have to say about career preparedness among the young people? One of the things that I do is I work with a lot of employers. My job is to connect employers to schools. So I spend a lot of time. I just took a bunch of students from another school out yesterday to 3 different employers. We took 24 kids out to 3 different employers yesterday. And bar none, almost across the board, what they say is it is less about the technical skills and more about the soft skills. Only 38% of employers say that college graduates are prepared in these skilled areas. So if you can be focusing on anything, or at least alongside the academics, it's working with them to be prepared, to show up and show up on time, to have grit or resilience. Those are the types of skills that employers are looking for. And so those are the things that you should be talking about with your students. And I try to with my kids at home. Last couple of things here. What can you do? Well, here's a couple of resources that are available to you and your students. And just a little heads up, there's a few slides here. I'm almost done, but they'll have QR codes. So I'll do it and pause so that if you want to grab it and see it, and in case you want to come back to it later, or you have the PowerPoint slides, you can pass them along when you're done. Again, mentioned KCTC's programs. There are 27, maybe now 28 programs at KCTC. Some of them are going right into trades. Some of them are, like I said, those pre-college types of courses. There is criminal justice for people who might want to go into law enforcement. We have a ton of healthcare professional ones. We have some that we're doing graphic design and marketing and IT and cybersecurity. So several different types of programs to explore for those who have students who are juniors or maybe even going into your senior year, that they could still explore that. But we have also plenty of other resources. So there's one QR code here that we actually say, here, if you want to check out some of our resources, you can go to careerreadiness.kensd.org or grab that QR code there. I'll just wait 1 second. And we have tons of pre-recorded 30-minute interviews that one of my colleagues has done. She has like over 150 different interviews with different employers of all types that you can go online, watch for free on YouTube, and they do these informational interviews about a bunch of different careers. Another thing that we have is what we call our career readiness framework, and we actually have some resources for you as parents. We give this to our schools for them to work with the students, but you can walk through these with your students. Lessons around employability skills, how to set goals, things about job shadowing or how to do some job searching. It's not the end-all be-all, but this is another tool that you can go ahead and look at yourself as a parent or have your students take a look at. I'll hold that 1 second. Things like, what should I do? Like, what are the skills that I should be looking for? What do I do if I want to do interviewing skills? What does that mean? How do I develop my resume in an effective way? And resource, will be one of the last slides here, but this is a big one. We have a newsletter that we send out bi-weekly that we send to the schools, and oftentimes they put them in their newsletters, their school newsletters. So you may have already seen these, or maybe you're already subscribed, but we do put these out there, a bi-weekly newsletter that we call Career Connections, and they're for students and parents to say, hey, here's some things going on in the community. Interestingly, sometimes we have things that community partners are doing that are unrelated to us, but we just find out about and push it. Progressive AE, which is now Progressive Companies, they actually do a 10-week, 12-week mentoring program. Kids who are either interested in architecture, construction, or engineering can come and get one-on-one mentoring, and they actually do a project at the end, and sometimes they're offered scholarships, small scholarships for being involved in those programs. And then finally, this is my last slide here. What can you do? Well, we need contacts. If you're interested in sharing your career path or journey, this is my shameless plug. You can reach out to us. What associations or other groups are you involved with? A lot of times we reach out to our schools and say, hey, get a hold of your parents. A lot of your parents can be involved with you because they do something for a living and get involved with your school district. And that's how we find a lot of our connections. So how can you get involved and give back? By going back to the school and talking about what you do for a living to kids who may or may not be interested in it. And if they're not interested, great. You just save them a lot of time and money. So that's all I have. I'm going to pass it along. So thank you so much for your time. And again, don't hesitate to reach out to us through one of these links. Thanks.
Can't say enough great things about Eric, the ISD, our partnership with them. We do a lot of stuff with them. Also, I would always, just to go off what Eric was just talking about, any idea you have, don't hesitate to contact Eric. If you're like, hey, I'd really like to share my journey with students, talk to him. He's really an ideas guy, so he is open for any idea you have. I also want to mention that we all will be posting this presentation on our counseling office websites. So don't feel like you have to feverishly take notes, write things down. It'll all be on there. We're also recording it. We'll post the recording as well. All three buildings have a comprehensive junior year approach. We might do it at slightly different times. However, it's very similar. As we kind of move into later fall here, we move out of working with our freshmen and seniors and start focusing our attention to our juniors. This event is one of the first things we do for juniors. And then in the following weeks, we're going to start to push into junior classrooms to do big group lessons with them and start asking them the question, what's next? And like Eric talked about, that question results in a lot of different answers. And we get students who, when we ask what's next, they know exactly what they're going to do. They've known what they were going to do since they were 4 years old, and that has never changed. Then we get students that we ask what's next, and they run out of the room scared to address the pending future. Many of you are probably thinking my student's one of those or somewhere in the middle. And we meet the students where they're at. Okay, we don't force them in one direction. We don't expect them to have all the answers. We meet them where they're at and start to push the issue of what's next and what we need to do to start that process. After we do the big group lesson, we offer optional junior conferences. These are also an opportunity for parents to join as well. So if a student or family needs a little bit more individualized attention, specific questions, we need to plan out a certain goals that you might have or their individual path. We do one-on-one conferences. We'll look at maybe a senior year schedule. We'll look at some of the stuff in Naviance, which I'll show you in a second, but take a real individualized approach to that question of what's next. We will put this out for students to sign up for in a couple weeks. And like I said, parents are welcome to either come in for that, or if we need to set up a Zoom, we can do that as well. We really try to make sure that during junior year, we're starting to maximize what senior year could be so that students are best set up for their future. We also recognize that students aren't all college bound. On all of our websites, we have resources for college, military, trade schools, students that go straight to employment, students that do a gap year program. We really want to make sure that students don't feel forced in a certain direction, but that we're supporting them in their goals and their unique paths. There is a video, I'm not going to play it, but it's linked in this show this presentation that gives you an overview of what Naviance is. I'm going to actually log in here in a second and show you what Naviance is. Your students started exploring this program in the middle school, and then we've continued it on through high school. So if you give me a second here. When your students log into Naviance, it looks something similar to this. I'll log in as a junior. A few of the features that we'll go over. The first one is, in Naviance, they have all sorts of different assessments, whether they're personality, career assessments, what their skills might be. This results page, this one, it gives them their Holland code or Holland traits of personality. Gives them their top scores, a little brief summary about what that might mean. But then what's really nice is it starts to break it down into different careers. Taking the results of that survey and what a student's interests or strengths might be, and then pairing it with something that they could then do in their future. Okay, so for example, this one, maybe if someone is health education specialist, the program will then give you an overview of what that career could look like, why you got matched to it. Like, what was it about this survey that matched you to this career? Each of these surveys gives a student that results page and summary page and then links it to specific careers. There's also this career option in Naviance where students can just explore careers if they want to learn more about something. I've always wanted to be an accountant, but I don't really know what that means. Well, here's what an accountant can do. So you also can just type in a different career, learn about it, research it, start to then proceed forward about what kind of training may you need to pursue that career. Also in Naviance, this is one of the more exciting ones. They have a great college research or college search engine called Supermatch. You can plug in any type of criteria that might be important to you. So like our students that say, I am done with the Midwest, I'm going out west. They type in the West, and they're like, well, okay, I don't really want to go to Washington. Take that one out. Alaska, that's too far north. Let's just go there. So now it's going to start to filter schools or colleges that are only in the West. Maybe there's something specific that they want to study. I want a bachelor's degree. Let's go back to like accounting. Now it's going to start showing us schools that are on the West Coast accounting degrees. So it has all different types of criteria that you can put in and start to filter out. Now I always give the disclaimer, be careful. This search engine is very addictive. You will find yourself 3 hours later doing deep research on private schools in North Dakota. Okay, so just prepare yourself that you can get addicted fairly quickly to it. Also in Naviance, these are starting to come to an end a little bit, but we put a list of all the college reps that come to visit our building in here. We have a few more that are still upcoming. And then we have some colleges that do a spring visit as well. But as your students start to move to junior and senior year, this is where we put a list of what schools are coming to visit our buildings and how they can sign up there as well. The last feature in Naviance that I'll show is the About Me page. This is really for student use. It's where they can keep a record of their activities. It has a built-in resume feature. It also has their test scores that they can keep track of. Where we actually use this as counselors is when students will ask us to write a letter of recommendation. We'll ask them just to have their resume updated so we know what some of their involvements might be outside of the classroom, or any kind of community service that they participated in so that we can highlight those as well. I do want to say that for Naviance, the benefit of the program is the process. And going through the surveys, going through the assessments, that's the benefit. And it is for sure one of the programs that the more you put into it, the more you get out of it. And so I always tell parents and families, we can create parent accounts for Naviance. They're horrible. They're not great. And the reason that they're not great is they are viewer access only. It takes away the process. So I encourage all of my parents and students, log in together. Okay, go through the process together. Look at the surveys, look at the results. That's where the benefit comes in.
All right, good evening. So I'm just going to jump more into some of the precursor information ahead of the junior conferences that Kyle mentioned that we invite families to schedule with their counselor. This is something that families and the student do together in our office. It's a one-on-one. So this initial information is more kind of like what applies to most of our students, but then when you have that time with your counselor individually, that's where we kind of dive into more your students' personal ideas for their future. So junior year, really from here on out, Kyle mentioned our visiting college reps that are kind of nearing the end for this year, but our juniors were invited to those right from the start of the year. We go in and show them how to sign up for those Naviance, how to utilize that time to their advantage. It's a really good way to make a good first impression with the college reps. Those college reps most often are part of the committee that actually reviews the applications as well. So we always tell our students, use that time, get to know them a little bit, ask really good questions, do a little bit of homework in advance to get to know the college. I always give the example of I was sat in on one of these rep visits with a student who was really interested in nursing. And so she asked the rep, what can you tell me about your nursing program? And it was a smaller school. And he said, well, we don't have one. So that was good for that student to know. So she did not apply to that college. So, but hopefully our students do enough homework that they know that before they sign up to meet with that college rep, because the rest of that student's time with that college rep was not time well spent. So, but junior year is really just about narrowing down choices, options. So hopefully your juniors a year from now have a really solid idea of what top choice schools they want to apply to. And especially if they're doing that in the fall next year with their top choice schools, they might still be getting to know some colleges that weren't maybe on their radar so much, but maybe they're hearing through friends, or maybe they decide to sit on a rep visit or go to a college fair where they hear about a college that they hadn't really considered before. If they're learning about that in September and October, they still will have time in November, December, maybe even in January that they might decide to apply to other colleges as well. So junior year is a really important time to spend the time to go through that search process. So this slideshow Kyle mentioned, you have access to this. I know on our Eastern website it's available under the junior specific information. So if you click the link, the live link for the timeline, it'll take you to something that looks like this. We also hand these out during junior conferences when you visit us in our office. So I'm going to hit some of the highlights of this. I know it's kind of hard to read this, so we have a few slides ahead. So Kyle just talked about the Supermatch and Naviance, where and really the more time you spend with it and the more you refine the search, the better the outcome is. So when I describe to students, I'm like, do you want to go to college in a large city or in the middle of nowhere or in a suburban area? Do you want to go to a college that has 30,000 people on campus? Do you want to go to a college that has 2,000 people on campus? Do you want to stay in Michigan or just stay in the Midwest? All these different questions. Do you want there to be Greek life or intramural sports? It'll ask so many different things. The more specific information you plug in, the better the search results are going to be. And really, this is just an idea generator. We don't expect students, especially at the start of their junior year. Eric gave the great example of he wanted to go to U of M because he loved the Wolverines, and that's all he knew about it at the time. So hopefully your students from now until next fall have a much better idea of why certain colleges might be a really great fit. Supermatch is a great way to get to know that. I also put on here from College Board. They offer a very similar program called Big Future, and because we have so many students that get acquainted with College Board through their participation with PSAT and SAT and AP classes, Big Future really does the same thing. I will say Big Future looks a lot nicer, looks way more fun. The graphics are way more exciting. In the end, though, it will give you very similar results. The nice thing with Big Future is participation through a lot of the different College Board products. So like students that take AP classes, when they take tests, they have that active account. If they go into Big Future and save colleges to their profile, there are certain buckets that get filled, and College Board will enter students into essentially drawings. They call it a scholarship. It's not really a scholarship because it's really just use of products, and students could be picked or selected to receive some scholarship money through that. So it's something worth looking into. I personally like Naviance because it does help students to get into Naviance. They're going to be using it a lot more frequently, especially into their senior year. And by saving colleges when they do the Supermatch, it actually helps them a little bit when they get to applying to colleges because those colleges are already saved in their Naviance profile. So I do like to push that one a little bit. College rep visits will come around again at the start of senior year, and even though students may have met with the reps their junior year, or maybe they just know for sure they've done their research, they know they want to go to MSU, they don't feel like they need to meet with that rep, I would still encourage it. It's a good way, again, to make a good first impression, ask questions, ask things about like student life activities, or like what are your personal interests, what do you want to major in, what career do you want to have, ask those reps about certain resources on campus during their 4 years that they could access to build their resume. So that's really good time to use even in the senior year. College fairs are going on. There was one I know at Cornerstone this fall. I've not yet heard GRCC sometimes will host one usually around mid-November. I don't have any information on that one yet, but as soon as we hear about if it's going to be a go, we'll push that out. There is one in April, the National College Fair at DeVos Place. So you'll hear more about that in a second. And then we also encourage our juniors and seniors to spend time visiting college campuses. Fall is a great time for colleges to invite prospective students for like special weekend visits. I know like Central Michigan University always has one called Fire Up Chips weekend where students are invited to sit in on classes, go on the tours. A lot of times there are overnight options. Students get invited to performances or games or things like that. So they really want the students to experience like life in that campus community. So if that's something that interests your students, or even just go there for a few hours during the day, we usually will excuse our students for 2 visits their junior year, and they could do 2 more their senior year as school-related visits. So those kids that are really conscious of their attendance, they get school-related absences for those. And that's really a great time to just check campuses out and just see what they're like. They get students always come back. They have a really good gut check, especially when it's a campus that they've never been on before. It's really interesting to hear students talk about either how excited they are. They're like, it's exactly what I thought it was going to be. I love it. I can't wait to apply. And then there are some students that'll come back. They're like, I'm so glad I went because it was nothing like I thought it was going to be. I thought I was going to love it, and I really did not at all. I'm not sure I would even apply there. It's like, well, that's good. I'm glad you went on that visit because that's pretty telling. So really utilize that time. It's really great information. And then the last is just conversations with college reps, with current students that go to that school, with older siblings, neighbors. Talk to your counselors. We have good resources for that. The more time, like Kyle said, the more time the student spends researching, shopping around, taking advantage of these resources, the better their choices are going to be. I mentioned the national, they used to call it the National College Fair. They've changed the language to the National Career Fair. It's still the college reps representing the schools. Certainly, I would say just about every school in Michigan is represented, but there's a wide representation of schools outside of the state as well. So they go at it from liking to talk to the students about their career intentions and then what programs at their school might prepare them for those careers. So they've changed the name of it to the National Career Fair, but when you hear that, just know that it's kind of your typical college fair. They will offer evening hours for families to show up, and it's a free event. So mark your calendars. It's April 1st. And then what are colleges looking for? So some things that juniors can prepare for, thinking about their transcripts, especially as they're thinking about choosing classes for their senior year. That's a big part of what we do during that junior conference is talk about what does a senior year look like in preparation for whatever your goals are for beyond high school. Grades and rigor are certainly one thing, but something that students tend to not be very aware of is when they're applying to a college, especially if it's a college that gets a fair amount of traffic from our schools, that their transcript is compared to other applicants from the same school first. So they're kind of in competition with their classmates before they're compared to maybe neighboring districts or something like that. The reason being is because not every school offers the same thing. So if you take a kid from Rockford that has access to probably close to 20 AP courses, and a kid from my hometown, I had one AP course option and that was it. Well, if I took that one and a kid from Rockford also took one, my one's going to look a little bit stronger because I took 100% of the AP classes at my school. So they tend to look at just your school first. So if you're at a school that has 15 AP courses and a student's taken maybe 7 or 8, and they're applying against a lot of other students that maybe took 4 or 5, maybe that 7 or 8 looks a little bit better. They look at a lot of other things too. I mean, that's not a deciding factor by any means that one, it's just one piece of the puzzle, but they do tend to look at that first. So colleges get our school profiles and they can see what courses were offered during the student's 4 years, and they can kind of better evaluate that too. But of course, they look at a lot of other things, not just the transcript, the grades, the GPA, what trajectory the student, the rigor they built into their schedule over 4 years. They want to know a lot of other things too. So even though that's an important piece, it's certainly not the only piece. The resume outside of the classroom and the quality of experiences, something that I really like students to focus on is, and especially when we talk to our younger grade levels, is what are you interested in and how do you show that interest? How do you pursue that? Colleges can really sniff out the student that participated in 7 or 8 different clubs during only their junior year. That's not very impressive. So we really encourage our students, find things that you really like and just stick with those few things. The quality is far better than the quantity. An essay, if it's required, a lot of our students will apply to schools using the Common App, and there is an essay built into that. More selective colleges will tie in additional essays. One thing with essays I will say is if they're not required, students don't necessarily have to do them. However, if they do them, the colleges get access to that, and that could be a good reference point for them, especially if they're just wanting more information about the student. We've heard more recently, I'd say in the last couple of years, the essay questions a lot of times are very similar, whether it's the generic one in the Common App or maybe a specific one for a certain college. It's usually something based on how did you grow out of a personal experience. And we're finding in recent years, a lot of students like to talk about very personal things, which is okay, but from the standpoint of like, I've never told anyone this before, and it's something fairly traumatic. And that's a bit of a concern for these people because they are mandated reporters. So it's hard to evaluate the growth part when they're kind of focused on, I think the student needs help. So that's something that if your students are writing essays, and especially if they're writing about something very personal, there are really good resources. I wouldn't tell them not to write about that, but just be very careful and intentional on the growth aspect out of that experience. And that doesn't mean like every kid has a very deep experience to have to write about. It's not really about that, but it's something that we've heard from several of our high traffic college reps over the last couple of years was it's kind of alarming for them. So if students are writing essays, juniors are going to hear about this a lot more at the end of the year because we have resources that are available so that when essay topics open up over the course of the summer, a lot of our students like to get started on these things in the summer between junior and senior year. There are some really good essay writing resources. I highly encourage any students to take advantage of those things. Or even if they just want to have help, like, are there adults that can proofread these things? I mean, I know I would be willing to do that. I don't get asked very often to do it, but if a student gives me that time, I would like to do that because I just would like to see what they're writing about and would be able to give them pointers. But we have some really good resources that would help them with their essay writing. So the essay is a very important piece for the schools that do require it. We hear that over and over again. The essay a lot of times is one of the things that our reps love reading the most because it's just how they feel like they get to know the student the best. Letters of recommendation, if they are required. So that's something that as students are researching colleges, especially toward the end of junior year and into the summer between junior and senior year, a lot of times teachers get asked to write letters for colleges that don't require them at all. If they don't require them, they're not going to read them. Colleges are very busy and receiving tons of information right now. They're not looking for extra. So that's something that we tell students, please only request a letter of recommendation if you know for sure that the college is going to read it. And last thing, testing, check to see if it's optional. Because of COVID, obviously a lot of colleges went test optional for admissions. We are finding, though, it varies from one college to the next. If an SAT or an ACT might be required once the student's been accepted, if they want to be considered for scholarships, there are certain merit-based scholarships that still do require a test score. So for our juniors that are preparing for spring testing, taking the SAT, or if they're planning on taking multiple tests, trying their best and getting the best score still could pay off in the end if it's a college that does want to see that test score to be considered for merit-based scholarships. Okay, so college application process. I'm going to go through very quickly because really this doesn't apply until next fall. A lot of this information will be repeated. We will offer information to our juniors right at the tail end of the school year and just talk about how can you spend your summer to get ready for this college application season. It's a busy time. It's really busy because you're a senior. It's fun. There's tons of senior events and you don't want to be bogged down with these looming college deadlines. So you can really use a good chunk of your summertime to just get ready and be ready to go so that these college applications are things that are not just hanging over your head all throughout the fall. So we will be coming around at the very end of the year to talk about how do you just get ready. Knowing deadlines is really important. We always get questions about, well, what's the difference between applying early decision and early action and regular decision? Are there advantages, disadvantages? We'll talk about those things. But knowing those deadlines, especially for your top choice schools, very important. Send your scores electronically for the ACT or SAT if it's necessary, if it's something that you want to do. That's something you can do in advance or you can wait until you apply to colleges. Most of our students do wait until they apply. Some of our students will apply and not send at all when colleges say they're test optional. They truly are test optional. If a student does not send a test score to a test optional college, they don't hold it against them. They cannot evaluate a student based on something that they don't know. So that's not really a point that a student will be at a disadvantage if they decide not to send a score. They should be aware, though, that the college might want to see it for the scholarship, but that happens later. Submitting an online application. Most of our students use Common App. There's so many colleges that will take the Common App now. It's become very, very common. So most of our students, like I said, will complete that. It is a tedious process to do the Common App, and that's why we really suggest to our students, if you're going to be using the Common App, start on it in the summertime, have it done. It's easy to do over the course of the summer. It's just lots of pages of stuff to click through and complete. Still, there are colleges that will take their own application that's just embedded on their website. So it depends on what the college or the student's goal is for college and where they want to apply. Beginning in the middle of September, we say mid-September because the transcripts, a lot of our students, it's like August rolls around, we're not even quite into the new school year yet, and we're already getting our tons of emails about like, I just applied to 10 schools, I need my transcript sent right now. It's not ready. We have to batch upload all the transcripts into Naviance to be able to send them. And a lot of students will be taking summer courses or trying to test out of classes, things like that, where all those different little weird grades that happen over the course of the summertime have to get changed on the transcripts before they're all ready to go. We also just like to take one last scan and just make sure there's nothing, I mean, it's very rare to find an error on a transcript, but we just want to make sure that there's nothing glaring. So we take one last look. So that takes some time, especially at the start of the school year when it's just kind of a circus anyway. Lots of stuff going on. So we wait until mid-September just to be sure we've got every grade on there. If there's any mistakes, they've been cleared up. And then we're ready to send. September is a very early time to apply to a college. Most of our students will apply during October because of the last bullet point on there. October has become known as Free College Application Month. And there's an organization called MCAN, the Michigan College Access Network. In the last few years, they've been awesome with, in advance, providing codes, fee waiver codes of all the participating schools. Many schools in Michigan now are free to apply the entire month of October. There are a handful that will just kind of pick and choose dates. Some have a special code to use, others don't. So if your students are planning, I mean, it could be very expensive. I know last year, Michigan State University charged $65 just to apply. But they have about, I think, 10 days in the month of October that if a student uses the special code, they get that $65 fee waiver, the $65 waived. So October is a very common time for students to apply. It still meets that early action deadline of November 1st. So with careful planning, the transcripts being ready in mid-September, students getting their applications done somewhere in October, it all comes together very well in a timely manner, and they start getting their acceptance letters usually around the holidays, maybe shortly after. So, all right, so just a quick snapshot of kind of like how the college selection process works. Applications submitted by November 1, and then we put through December 31st for some of those outlying schools. FAFSA completion, that's tentatively going to open December 1st of your student's senior year. Please don't fill it out early. That can kind of put a kink in the works. FAFSA completion, they went through a major overhaul last year, so there were some delays. So that's why we put that December 1st tentative date on there. As your kids enter their senior year, we'll have better information on that. Scholarship searches, we have lots of scholarships that start up right about this time of the year. Many of them have deadlines that stretch into like late winter or early spring. College admissions decisions can be made anywhere from December to May. Usually May 1 is the hard deadline for most colleges. During the winter months and into the spring, they will be offering financial aid information. And then hopefully your student knows where they want to go. And May 1st, they will have their decision made and their deposit sent to the college.
Okay, so I want to pause a second and just kind of let you take all this in because this is a lot of information. It's all very relevant. And kind of rest your worries that when your student is a senior, we will revisit this again, especially for families. We have some type of program that we all deliver in the fall, whether in conjunction with open house or another opportunity where families can really hear this information again, and then we will do a deeper dive into what we're sharing just so that it feels like, okay, now we're in this actual process. What do we do again because I forgot what happened? These two leave me with the fun part of the presentation, the finance. And if you're anything like me, hearing this one time now may not be enough because it's something you may not think about in your everyday work that you do. And so you will have opportunities to receive this information again, but we can kind of introduce it to you or help refamiliarize you to what this involves. But this is one of our cartoons. We want you to just think about intentionality. That's the biggest thing that Eric discussed with you, is having that intention and flipping the script of, instead of where do I want to apply to college, what do I want to do? And then with what I want to do and how I'm wired and what my skill set is, how does that translate to preparation, any type of schooling or a major? And then which programs at colleges have those majors, or at any other kind of post-secondary preparatory program. So let's talk about the net price calculator. Rarely when you look at the sticker price of college cost is that exactly what a student will pay. And the net price calculator it's designed for first-time undergraduate students who are first pursuing college education. And colleges are required to put this on their website so families and students can get an at-a-glance estimate of what that might look like for them, as long as they are participating in the federal system. It's an estimate of the net costs after other fees have been considered, so including grants and scholarships, and we'll talk about what that involves in just a moment. So a basic glimpse at scholarships and financial aid. This is similar to how we explain this to students. There really are two major types of assistance. There's merit-based. Has there been any kind of achievement, academic, athletic, anything related to performing arts, in which a student is being recognized for something they have accomplished? That would be a merit-based assistance in the form of a scholarship typically. Needs-based is where kind of that FAFSA, which we'll talk about as well, comes into the picture, where a family is not able to pay for the college completely on their own. Grants are a part of that as well. You may have heard that the free application for federal student aid has undergone a pretty significant overhaul in the past couple of years. Many of you who may have older students were accustomed to October 1st being that open date. It's now pretty much guaranteed to be set at December. And that is a delay from what they're used to. I don't know what it will look like next year. I don't anticipate it's going to go back, but that's not my area of expertise, so we'll see. But most students will complete that at the beginning of their senior year. Calvin University and other universities in the area, colleges and universities that we partner with, are wonderful resources where they will provide any kind of financial aid information or field questions from our community members, regardless of if you plan to attend. So that's a really nice thing. Calvin did host a webinar in September, and it's recorded. So if it's something you just want to hear directly from the financial experts and take that deeper dive, you are welcome to pursue that. So the FAFSA is free. It does require an FSA ID for students and their contributors, which is a parent or a guardian. Those can be applied for at any time. That does not need to happen during the junior year. But should the FAFSA open December of 2025, then certainly that fall, families and their students can pursue that FSA ID and start that process. It is based on previous tax year's information, and it calculates the SAI, which is the Student Aid Index, which is formerly known as the EFC. If those of you are familiar with the estimated family contribution, like I said, the jargon has shifted. Everything's shifted in recent years. And the financial need is determined based upon the difference between the cost of attendance, that COA, and that SAI. Again, the colleges will offer a lot of support to students. We often will recommend to students, if they want to have one-on-one support in completing the FAFSA with someone who knows really, really well how to interpret tax information and then support them in that process, GRCC will host any student, whether or not they want to attend, through their enrollment center and support that process. It now takes about 30 minutes to complete. I know it, for instance, when I went back to graduate school years ago, it was really daunting. Again, it was long. It was over 100 questions, and now it's been reduced to just under 40. So I think it's much more user-friendly. I have not completed it personally, but this is what I'm hearing, and so I think that's really helping families. There also is more information on our sites. The CSS profile I'll mention briefly because it really doesn't pertain to many students. It's access to non-federal financial aid from colleges that are typically private in nature. So they have different sources of funding through endowment, through just other funding sources. And it is owned by the College Board. It's not a free organization. It's not expensive. I think it's in the $30 range. But it determines non-federal financial aid. There's an exception of a couple of public schools that do use the CSS profile, but it's not frequent. Okay, U of M is one of them. They're still using that, but the majority of our students will not have to encounter this. But should you, you've been given a heads up. So when the student aid report is generated from the FAFSA, and a family is interpreting what have I been awarded, they're awarded aid in the form of scholarships, which is a non-repayable reward. Again, that's based on that merit piece. Grant is non-repayable award based upon need. The way I explain this to students is it's gift money, really. A grant is like a gift. You don't have to pay it back. It's awarded to a student based upon family circumstances and need. And then loans. We all know what loans are, but they must be repaid with interest. Work-study programs are less known. I know when I was in college years and years ago, undergrad, those were things a lot of students did participate in, and it sounds like that there are new and unique opportunities to pursue those. Some of them are based on financial need, but it's always worthwhile that students are inquiring about that, even when they're meeting with our college reps, to just better understand what types of programs does their specific university offer in this genre. So scholarships can, again, just kind of, it's such a nebulous thing, but it's really rewarding when students can find something that will kind of help cut some of that cost. We always tell students when you're searching for scholarships, start with the colleges that you are the most interested in and visit their financial aid pages. Most of them are very specific in how they spell out how they will award scholarship based upon merit. Some of them are known to not give out scholarships so much, kind of our big two in our state, merely because they have so many students interested in attending in such a high applicant volume. But for some of our smaller regional colleges, some of the private colleges, they use scholarship to recruit students to attend. And oftentimes that private college sticker price in the state of Michigan can be matched with a public college sticker price due to some of the scholarship that students can earn. There are also a lot of local scholarships that students can pursue. The Grand Rapids Foundation has a wonderful website that we encourage families to dig into that. LMCU through Lake Michigan Credit Union. I've been doing this job for 15 years, and I can't think of a year where we have not had a Forest Hills student win one of those awards. It's $2,000 based upon an essay they write. It's not based upon GPA, so it's really open to any student who wants to just kind of put their word out there and share their thoughts on what the prompt is. And then checking with local employers. We have students who work for Meijer, and Meijer awards scholarship to their employees, including minors. Or not minors, I'm sorry, but including students who are employed through their organization, not just their parents. And then I also encourage students to check with their own parents' employers. Your employer may have scholarship available to your children, any kind of dependent. You just need to inquire. And if it's $250, $500 here or there, that is awesome. And then there are national search databases. FastWeb has been around for a long time, where students can create an account with that organization. They can do it now, but we give the caveat that we encourage them to create a different email account because they will be inundated with scholarships, and it's a lot to sift through. But they complete a profile and they answer lots of demographic questions, but there are scholarships for students who are twins, students who have grown up near railroad systems. You know, it's just so obscure sometimes, but they exist. How do you find them otherwise but through these search engines? We always give the word to the wise: never pay someone to find scholarships for you because they're using a search engine like this. There should be no money involved. And this is a new slide I added because there have been some unique incentives put in place by specifically the state of Michigan. The Michigan Achievement Scholarship is something that's available to students who have an SAI of $30,000 and below. That may not target all of our students, but it may target enough that would be a really helpful thing to have. TIP as well, and I encourage any student who receives Medicaid to pursue that. But then there are a couple of scholarships that are unique to students who are interested in education. There is a shortage of educators in the state of Michigan, and so there have been these incentive programs put in place, which are really high in the cost that is delivered to students. I can't remember the exact number, but I know that during the last 2 years of college, students have a certain number of their credits covered in their tuition with the contingency that they agree to teach in the state of Michigan. And then during that student teaching experience, where they oftentimes are not able to be employed because they're student teaching and then having evening classes, they're given a stipend to live. So it's wonderful. There are those contingencies that student would be asked to stay in the state of Michigan. And then the community college guarantee. We're lucky we live in Kent County, where students will have that opportunity. But it also does a lot with just college planning. We use Naviance as our comprehensive tool. College Board does offer some interesting resources that help students kind of compare the different sources of aid. In a nutshell, very user-friendly. So, if you're a person where you like having that in simpler terms, kind of in layman's terms, it's a nice a spot for you to check. And then they also have a senior year financial aid checklist. I like their checklist. They also do a checklist for what to ask on a college tour, things a student or a family might not think about. So if you're not acquainted with College Board, I would encourage you to do that. Acquaint yourself. And all students do have a College Board account because they take the PSAT and SAT. Should they not remember their login, they do have to contact College Board in order to access that. But it really does have a lot of things to offer. So college athletics, and I will jump in a little bit to testing in just a moment, but if your student is considering college athletics, we need to know. And we need to know for a couple of reasons. It's important that they understand eligibility through the NCAA. Division I and Division II do have a rigorous set of requirements as far as courses, and those courses have to be NCAA approved. Not everything a student takes at our respective buildings is NCAA approved. The majority of it is if it's a Michigan merit requirement, but it's just important to have those conversations on what's approved, what's not. So the eligibility centers for NCAA, NAIA, we recommend students register with those organizations during their junior year. The cost is low. I think it's $40-50. And so it's just an opportunity for them to kind of start that process, check their eligibility, stay in touch with us, stay in touch with coaches, if that is something that they are considering being a student athlete. So back into testing, we've all heard the ACT, SAT. State of Michigan endorses the SAT in conjunction with the Michigan Merit Exam and the MSTEP that students complete. I believe all buildings have completed the PSAT by now. Just this week, Central High completed it a couple of weeks ago. And that, again, it was the National Merit Qualifier, but it also is that practice for when students take the official SAT exam in the month of April. It will be listed on their transcript upon graduation. However, not when they are applying to colleges and the transcript is being sent. So I hesitate sharing that, but I want to make sure you are aware that it will be on the transcript. We are required by the state of Michigan to publish it. However, we don't publish it as a part of those college admissions process. And so if a student wants to send an SAT, they need to send it directly from the organization itself, because that also, it just legitimizes the score, seeing that it's not coming from a third party. It's coming directly from the testing agency. In our building at Central High, we still have some students take ACT, but it's pretty few and far between. Some students feel that they perform better on one over the other. They are different tests, and they cover different materials. There are some great sources out there that kind of compare and contrast those different tests for you. So again, all juniors will take the PSAT this month. They will take the SAT in April of 2025. It is optional for students to include a test score when they apply to college. I think that's on my next. There it is. So these are the sites here, and again, this will be on our website. Sending the SAT score or ACT score to a college is complicated right now a little bit, and we advise students to have conversations with the various reps who visit our buildings, have conversations with us on whether it's in their best interest to send or to not send. Deciphering all of the different languages of test optional, test blind is becoming more and more complicated. So it's just something to consider. We still value the SAT that is given to students in April. It's important that they prepare for that so that in the event they are applying to a college and it's kind of a hard and fast, you need to send it, they've done their best. But it's fair to have those conversations with us next year and even this year when they're getting scores back at the end of the year to determine what they should do. I have a link here of the test optional and test-free colleges in the United States right now. The list is really high. So it's just an interesting timing in college admissions, what's happening with standardized testing. We will see where it continues to go. So just a couple of reminders. We will post this recording on our websites. We will post this slide deck on our websites. We encourage all of our juniors and seniors to be checking their school email regularly. It's really important. It's a skill they're going to have to develop when they go to college. But we also communicate with them en masse, just as we communicate with families through our counseling office newsletters. It's important that they're not missing things and catching all that good information. We will also, as Kyle and Mitch mentioned, be hosting junior conferences for students based upon their interests. This is kind of that macro launch. Then we will all do classroom visits, and then there will be that opportunity for those one-on-one conversations for students through junior conferences. Those need to happen prior to the scheduling season for the 25-26 school year, which launches typically February. So our request is that those conversations happen prior to that, because then we can have a really fruitful conversation and not a last-minute conversation about what courses might be in the best interest of that student for their senior year, based upon what their goals are when they graduate. Again, we know we have students pursuing lots and lots of different things upon graduation. This is kind of a glimpse into that larger college application process. When we visit classrooms, we talk about all the different options students have. We're here to support them and you in any way we can. Thank you for coming to Central High. We know this was off the beaten path for some of you, and we appreciate your attendance and attention tonight. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening.